I didn't mind telling the world that I was gay. I was gay. And it's nice to be happy.
It sure is.
I was happy.
In the world of R&B music, the stage lights and glittering hits are just the tip of the iceberg. Underneath the spotlight, a whole lot of stories have been buried, but no secret stays hidden forever. There were black male singers who made millions of hearts melt, but to even get a shot at standing on that stage, they had to trade things the public could never imagine. What I'm about to lay out are the stories of 11 R&B male singers, idols from the golden era, who, to sign contracts, record tracks, or simply be seen, had to exchange their bodies with powerful executives and producers. Every step up the ladder of fame came stained with sacrifice and nights soaked in tears. Are you ready to face the ugly truth when music, power, and dreams all come with a price tag written in flesh? 11. Little Richard, the rock legend who sold his body as a gay man to survive and shine. Little Richard, born Richard Penniman, is one of the untouchable icons of rock and roll. That explosive voice, wild dancing, and larger-than-life personality made him an inspiration to millions around the world. Starting out on tiny stages in the Deep South, he turned every performance into a hurricane of energy that dragged rock out of cramped studios and shot it straight to the top of the international charts. His legacy isn't just timeless hits, it's rebellion, freedom, and breaking every rule in the book. But behind all that glory was a brutal road. Starting in 1947, Richard Penniman survived by working as a hustler at bus stations and traveling carnivals in Macon, Georgia. He never hid it. He openly said that to eat and to get opening act gigs, he slept with truck drivers and carnival owners. Those hookups were temporary, but they opened doors. In 1951, he got arrested for lewd conduct in a Macon park. You'd think that would kill his dreams, but instead a local producer bailed him out on the condition that Richard took care of him a few times. Every trade was a gut-wrenching choice between survival and shame just to get a bigger stage. Richard lived caught between two worlds, burning passion for music and total dependence on men who exploited him. Long nights in dusty tents with music blaring and the smell of mildew in the air, he sang while choking back humiliation. Every step onto a brighter stage was a small victory, every compromise backstage a wound that never healed. By the early 1950s, his career started taking off with his first RCA Victor deal, but almost nobody knows what it really cost: his youth, his freedom, and his dignity. The stories he told later still haunt fans: hookups with truckers, carnival bosses, being used and forced to trade sex to stay alive. All tied to the dream of one day headlining. People see the legend, the explosive energy, the voice that stopped the world in its tracks, but almost nobody saw the years spent struggling in the dark, the silent pain, the guilt eating him up inside. Who would ever guess a rock icon once lived on the bottom, selling his body as a gay man just to survive and chase the dream? That very tragedy, those desperate choices, are what forged the Little Richard the world remembers: loud, defiant, unstoppable, and immortal in music. 10. Billy Wright, the Prince of the Blues who sold his body as a gay man to walk into the studio. Billy Wright, known as the Prince of the Blues, was one of the most important voices in Southern blues. At Atlanta's Club 81 in the late 1940s, he turned every show into something unforgettable, dripping in jewelry and oozing confidence. His music hit people right in the chest, from slow heartbreak ballads to hard-driving rhythms packed with soul. In 1949, he walked into the Savoy Record Studio and kicked off a blazing career that made him a blues icon and inspired a whole generation, including Little Richard himself. But getting that glory cost him something horrific. Late 1940s Atlanta wasn't just bright lights, it was life or death choices. Billy never sugarcoated it. To perform at Club 81 and get studio time, he slept with at least 2 white club owners and a Savoy A&R guy. Every time was a war between staying alive and holding on to any shred of self-respect. In dim back rooms that reeked of booze and cigarette smoke, he swallowed disgust and performed his best just to be taken seriously and move one step closer to his dream. In 1949, the big break came. Savoy Records opened the door every young singer wanted. To walk through it, Billy had to give in one more time with the well-off A&R exec. Every compromise carved another piece out of his freedom and pride, but those humiliating moments got him in the booth and let his voice and style finally shine. Little Richard later admitted Billy taught him everything: how to wear dresses, how to turn charm and connections with rich men into survival tools in the cutthroat music business. Billy took the stage bursting with pride and life as the Prince of the Blues. But behind the lights were endless days facing shame and exploitation. Trading his body wasn't just how he ate, it was strategy. He turned pain into power, so every note he sang carried the mark of a man who refused to break. Billy Wright's career burned bright, but the price of that light is something most people can't even imagine. He wasn't just a blues legend, he was living proof of how brutal the industry was. An era where power and gay relationships overlapped to manufacture stars. Every melody, every dance move, every dazzling outfit on stage was built on torment, sacrifice, and choices nobody should have to make. 9. Jimmy Scott, the extraordinary voice who sold his body as a gay man to break into the business. Jimmy Scott, with that rare sky-high voice and the delicate frame that came with Kallman syndrome, is an unforgettable jazz icon. Early 1950s New York came alive whenever he stepped up, subtle phrasing, emotion that sank into your bones. His performances conquered even the toughest crowds, pushed jazz to new heights, and inspired generations. His 1955 debut album, Very Truly Yours, was a turning point that cemented him as one of the most unique voices of the 20th century. But getting there meant walking through hell. 1950, New York wasn't just the jazz capital, it was a shark tank where power sat with white club owners and producers. Tiny, different Jimmy became rare goods in their eyes, and that difference made him a target. He told journalist David Ritz that to record his debut album, he had to spend nights with the owner of Birdland and a Savoy producer. Those nights dragged on heavy, with dim lights, distant jazz, and thick liquor smell, while Jimmy swallowed humiliation for a shot at a career. Every surrender, every time he gave his body, was walking a tightrope between power, contempt, and pure artistic hunger. Those calculated relationships didn't just bring pocket money or gigs. They decided whether that once-in-a-lifetime voice ever got recorded or died in the dark. Jimmy learned to live in two parallel worlds, the burning artist on stage and the man forced to trade dignity for survival. When Very Truly Yours finally dropped in 1955, almost nobody knew the soft, emotional music was built on years of tears and shame. Jimmy didn't just sing with gifted pipes, he sang with patience, endurance, and street smarts around the men who held the keys. Nights with white club owners and producers left scars on his soul that shaped a Jimmy Scott who was both fragile and unbreakable. His music is immortal, but fame came at the price of agonizing choices, brutal compromises, and nights spent gritting his teeth. Even with a voice extraordinary enough to make him a jazz legend on talent alone, Jimmy Scott still had to sell his body as a gay man to even get in the door of the world he dreamed of. 8. Escarita, the rock wild man who sold his body as a gay man to light up the stage and land a record deal. Escarita, real name S.Q. Reader, was one of the wildest figures in 1950s rock and R&B. Insane style, ferocious voice, over-the-top stage antics, he left audiences stunned. His drag shows and traveling carnival gigs turned every night into a colorful explosion. He was a huge influence on Little Richard and helped create that crazy, rebellious image that became rock legend. His first Capitol Records deal opened a new chapter, but the road there was anything but smooth. Between 1953 and 1955 in Greenville, South Carolina, Escarita lived a hidden tragedy. He worked tobacco circuit carnivals and traveling drag shows where the bright lights hid a cruel reality. To headline, to be seen by producers, he had to submit to the white carnival bosses, sometimes night after night, just to keep his voice and talent from being buried. Those nights he forced himself to endure so his rice bowl wouldn't get smashed. For 2 solid years before his first contract, he basically lived off those compromises. Every sexual trade was a transaction, performance opportunities, and a shot at glory versus unspeakable shame. But those painful choices eventually led him to Paul Gayton at Capitol Records and the recording session every artist back then dreamed of. Little Richard confirmed Escarita had been selling himself for at least 2 years before stepping into a studio. Ugly truth and proof of an era so ruthless that even rare talent had to pay with flesh. Back then, Escarita lived split in two. Daytime passionate performer, nighttime desperate man enduring whatever it took to stay afloat. The stage, lights, and roaring music were the reward, but behind it were tangled relationships and forced choices just to keep a career alive. The musical glory he reached can't be separated from nights spent suffering humiliation and pain. That ferocious voice, eccentric style, and classic performances drove crowds wild, but few know how many times he sold his body to get there. Those brutal experiences forged an Escarita who was fierce yet tragic, manic on stage, lonely in the shadows. 7. Johnny Ace, the Memphis singer who sold his body as a gay man to make real money. Johnny Ace, with that smooth, emotional voice, was one of the standout R&B stars of the early 1950s. His music echoed all over Beale Street in Memphis, bringing blues and R&B to huge new audiences. Before he blew up on Duke Records, his ballads and love songs touched hearts with raw honesty and irresistible charm. His refined performing style and unforgettable voice made him a role model for later singers and left a deep mark on American R&B history. But Johnny Ace's road to success was no bed of roses. Memphis in 1951 to 52 wasn't just a music mecca. It was a minefield for young, struggling artists with no safety net. Johnny drifted around Beale Street, picking up filler gigs just to eat and have a place to crash. In that desperation, the door to Duke Records cracked open at a price almost nobody could stomach. According to manager Don Roby and musicians who worked with him, Ace had to sleep with a white casino owner who doubled as a music investor to get introduced to the studio. The $500 advance he got back then was life-changing money, enough to cover rent, clothes, and actually live. But that cash came with crushing shame and mental weight. Every night with the casino boss was a battle between pride and the will to survive, between needing money and chasing the music dream. Ace knew refusing meant his voice might never get recorded or heard by the world. He had to swallow the pain and helplessness. Every surrender moved him closer to a contract. Johnny Ace walked into the studio not just on talent, but on choices most people would never make. Behind the studio lights and Duke Records recognition were long nights under someone else's control and decisions forced by a brutal industry. His career shone bright, but the cost was steep. Johnny Ace isn't just an immortal R&B voice, he's living proof of how ruthless the music world was, where power dynamics and gay relationships built the rocky road to success. 6. Frankie Lyman, the rock prodigy who sold his body as a gay man so the teenagers could score a hit. Frankie Lyman, the astonishing kid voice and face of the teenagers, was a rock phenomenon in the early 1950s. The group took Harlem by storm, from street corners to big studios, bringing fresh, explosive, youthful energy. Tiny Frankie, with his huge confidence, became a teen idol overnight. Why Do Fools Fall in Love in 1956 changed everything, turning the teenagers and Frankie into nationwide stars and leaving a lasting mark on rock and R&B. But behind that monster hit is a haunting story. Harlem, 1954 to 55, when Frankie was only 12 or 13, was a cruel world for child prodigies. Frankie was kept by George Goldner, the powerful boss of Roulette Records. That was the price for the teenagers to land a deal way beyond their years. Frankie didn't just spend nights with Goldner, he also had to service some New Jersey distributors. Those nights, a little boy endured exploitation while still having to protect his spirit and voice so he wouldn't lose the chance to become a rock star. Every time he sacrificed his body, it brought another step forward in music, but it also cut another piece out of his childhood and self-worth. Frankie still had to go out, smile, sing, and dance like nothing was wrong while backstage adult power games and lust choked his life. The teenager's career, their fame, and recording Why Do Fools Fall in Love were all built on those agonizing compromises. Those 2 years, 1954 to 55, shaped Frankie's musical future, but left mental scars that haunted him until the day he died. Every time Frankie hit the stage, every note carried both resilience and torment, and a burning need to prove his worth. Frankie Lyman's story is living proof of the tragedies hidden behind child star glory. Music, fame, and millions of screaming fans covered up nights of abuse and survival choices no teen, let alone a child, just stepping into adolescence should ever have to make. Frankie's music rang out sweet and captivating, but behind those melodies, he suffered pain no kid should ever know. 5. David Ruffin, lead singer of The Temptations who sold his body as a gay man to earn his spot on stage. David Ruffin, with his powerful, emotion-drenched, mesmerizing voice, was the soul of the legendary Motown group The Temptations. Songs like My Girl didn't just make him famous, they shaped 1960s American soul music. The stage lit up whenever Ruffin appeared, with magnetic presence and rare emotional delivery. He quickly became the lead singer, an icon of Motown's golden age and inspiration for generations, leaving a permanent stamp on soul history. But behind the spotlight was a tragedy only insiders knew. Detroit, 1963 to 64, when The Temptations were looking to replace Paul Williams or Eldridge Bryant, David Ruffin faced a brutal test. To become lead singer, he had to submit to a high-level Motown producer. According to hints in Otis Williams' autobiography, it happened at the Gotham Hotel in Detroit. Young, talented, but still unknown, Ruffin had to spend the night with the producer to lock in the spot. That hotel room was a psychological and survival battlefield. Ruffin endured power and adult desire, staying calm and compliant so he wouldn't lose his life-changing shot in the cutthroat music world. Giving in was mandatory currency for the career taking shape. His body became a bargaining chip in the Motown machine where power sat in just a few hands and rare talent still had to dodge vicious traps. After that night, Ruffin officially became lead of The Temptations and helped create the smash My Girl. His later blazing career and fame can't be separated from that dark experience. In the shadows of the Gotham Hotel, endurance, sacrifice, and brutal choices forged the man David Ruffin became. 4. Teddy Pendergrass, Philadelphia's golden voice who sold his body as a gay man to become lead singer and go solo. Teddy Pendergrass is one of Philadelphia's legendary voices, deep, warm, seductive, hitting you in the feels from the very first note. Before leaving Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes for a solo career, he helped crank out massive R&B hits in the 1970s. His stage presence was electric, every move, every glance drove audiences wild. Going solo, his records shook souls and made him a global Philadelphia music icon. But that glory came through excruciating experiences. Philly, 1971-72, when he was a standout in Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes, and starting to see solo possibilities, Teddy got invited multiple times to a fancy suburban mansion by a powerful investor at Philadelphia International Records, Gamble and Huff. Those supposedly casual visits were loaded with sexual demands. According to a former industry insider, it was the non-negotiable price to be pushed into the lead singer spot and set up the 1976 solo deal. Every trip to the mansion was a mental war. Teddy had to keep it together under crushing pressure and cruel demands while maintaining his dignified artist image on the outside. In the glittering lights and lavish parties, his music dreams and future were decided through mental and physical torment. Those overnights were survival strategy to cross the final line into solo stardom. Thanks to those long nights drowning in pressure and shame, Teddy became lead of the Blue Notes and later landed the solo deal that launched him into the stratosphere. Every note he sang on stage afterward carried memories of those bitter experiences. Fans saw confidence, sex appeal, and a hypnotic voice, but few knew success meant facing soul-tearing choices where career cost pain and trauma. That investor's mansion became a haunting symbol of power and traps in Philly's music scene that followed Teddy for the rest of his life. 3. Luther Vandross, New York's golden voice who sold his body as a gay man to land a solo deal. Luther Vandross is one of the greatest R&B voices of all time. Smooth, warm, carrying emotion deeper than almost anyone. Before going solo, he was a top background singer and songwriter, working with giants like David Bowie and adding gorgeous harmonies to the era's sound. When he dropped his first solo album on Epic in 1981, he exploded. Sweet, seductive songs with irresistible pull that took him from New York to worldwide legend status. Hardly anyone knows what it really took to reach the top. From 1974-77, while doing session work and trying to prove he could carry his own records, Luther was forced into repeated sexual encounters by a senior executive at Cotillion Records, an Atlantic subsidiary, in an Upper West Side apartment. Those long nights in the luxury pad were anything but pleasant, just tension and total control by the man with the power. Musicians who worked with him later said Luther cried a lot and called it the price I had to pay. Every time Luther walked into that apartment, his career moved forward, but the shame haunted him for life. Thanks to enduring those nights, he finally got the Epic solo deal and a decades-long brilliant career. Every song, every note he sang afterward carried traces of those dark experiences where his body became a tool for survival and opportunity. His music was sweet and seductive, but behind the tender lyrics was pain and sacrifice almost nobody understood. 2. Sylvester, San Francisco disco icon who sold his body as a gay man to hit the big stage. Sylvester is one of San Francisco's brightest disco legends. Sky-high, powerful voice packed with soul that grabbed you from the first note. Before You Make Me Feel, Mighty Real, blew up the world, he was already a key part of the drag troupe, the Disquotes, living, learning performance, and building his unique style. His stage was pure energy, confidence, and personality fused into unforgettable shows. Signing with Fantasy Records in 1977 launched him as a global disco icon. But behind the shine were years of crushing pressure. From 1968-72 in San Francisco, while living with the Disquotes, Sylvester openly worked the streets on Polk as a sex worker to eat and keep the music dream alive. He slept with at least 2 club owners and a Fantasy Records producer to get on bigger stages and land the contract. Every trade was a brutal mental fight. Meetings in apartments, hotel rooms, or producer offices were ruled by desire. Sylvester had to adjust himself, balancing survival with feeding his musical hunger. Some nights he left those rooms with burning pain, tears, and exhaustion, but also a spark of hope. People close to him back then knew he cried talking about what he had to pay for the spotlight and eventual solo deal. After the hard years, Sylvester finally hit the main stages, performed for huge crowds, and became an immortal disco legend. But every song, dance move, and note still carried the weight of those bitter, coercive experiences few could imagine. When he stepped into the light with "You Make Me Feel Mighty Real," fans saw energy, confidence, and unique style. But few knew it was built on fighting power, lust, and humiliation to survive the brutal music world. Sylvester's fame and blazing career are inseparable from his Polk Street years, dark rooms, and encounters with producers. His music rang out sweet and upbeat, but it was the result of sacrifice, pain, and survival strategy only insiders understand. He became a disco icon, but also living proof of the tragedies hidden behind the glamour, where talent is traded for flesh and the dream of stardom slams headfirst into the industry's cruel pressures. 1. Gerald Levert, Cleveland R&B star who sold his body as a gay man to lift the group to the top. Gerald Levert was one of Cleveland's finest R&B voices, not just for his emotion-packed singing, but for his commanding, charismatic stage presence. Before going solo and becoming a superstar, Gerald and his group Levert conquered fans with infectious hits that lit up 1980s R&B. His songwriting gift, sweet vocals, and leadership made him the heart of Levert, taking them from small Cleveland gigs to an Atlantic Records deal and real fame. But lifting the group that high meant years of hard calculation. Cleveland, 1986-88. While Gerald and Levert were grinding to escape poverty, Atlantic Records, one of the biggest labels around, held the key to changing their lives. That key didn't turn for free. A white A&R exec took notice and invited Gerald to hotel rooms multiple times in 1987. Every visit to those softly lit, stage-like luxury rooms meant facing tough physical demands. Those nights weren't innocent meetings or pure business talks. Gerald knew it was a trade, and if he endured for a while, the group would get the contract, advance money, and big stages. So he did, not once but many times, with private tears and inner torment nobody saw. A former band member later said only after they made it big did the rest of the group learn what Gerald had paid so the whole family could escape poverty. Those years turned Gerald into a strong man carrying deep wounds. Every song he sang held the ache of quiet struggle and sacrifice. Facing the man with power, Gerald swallowed tears, stayed determined, and poured honesty and fire into his music, turning pain into stage energy. In return, Levert signed with Atlantic, started dominating R&B charts, played for thousands, and climbed out of broke. But the group's bright music also carries the mark of a private tragedy where dreams and success were bought with Gerald Levert's body, the R&B icon who truly became the soul that carried them all to fame and fortune. There you have it. The world of stars isn't as pretty as we like to think. These stories today are just the tip of the iceberg in R&B, where stage lights hide countless dark secrets and painful sacrifices of body and spirit. If these stories make you rethink the real cost of fame, drop a comment below and let me know what you think. We really want to hear from you. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the next videos, where we'll keep pulling back the curtain on the hidden corners behind the spotlight of stars you thought you knew. Every follow and comment is the biggest motivation for us to dig up more raw, real stories about the lives of the famous.